Welcome to The Explainer. If you've been feeling this weird, unexplained pressure on your wallet lately, I promise you, you aren't imagining things. Today, we're taking a hard, completely unfiltered look at the quiet, systematic shifts that are rewiring our economy right now. We're going to unpack the actual data behind what's happening out there and, much more importantly, how you can physically and financially prepare to survive and even thrive through it. We are moving right past the headlines today and looking directly at the numbers.
Let's start with the massive question we're all secretly asking ourselves. Why does it feel like your money buys less, even though you're working just as hard? If you feel like your standard of living is shrinking despite your absolute best efforts, your feelings are completely validated. This loss of purchasing power, it isn't just a string of bad luck. It's happening mathematically and honestly without mercy. Every single day you wake up, your cash is simply worth less than the night before, slowly eating away at your stability from the inside out.
All right, let's dive into the macro math. $34 trillion. That is the staggering U.S. national debt right now. And get this, it's rising by $1 trillion literally every 90 days. You simply cannot inject that insane amount of printed money into an economy without seeing severe consequences. When the supply of dollars rises faster than the supply of actual goods, the value of every individual dollar falls. It's an accelerating inflation crisis that is mathematically guaranteed to squeeze the middle class. Now, observers note that economic unraveling historically follows a pretty predictable four-stage cycle. First, you have complacency, where everyone just trusts the system. Second is the trigger, think a pandemic or a massive supply shock. Third is realization, and fourth is panic. According to the data we're reviewing today, we are currently deep in stage 3, the realization phase. This is that quiet moment right before the panic hits, and the public wakes up all at once.
So, what does this realization phase actually look like behind closed doors? Well, last year alone, global central banks quietly accumulated over 1,000 tons of gold. That is the highest level of purchasing we've seen in modern history. Let's be real, central banks do not hoard this level of physical gold when they trust their own fiat currencies. They're hedging against a very fragile system, basically proving that the smart money is already moving into hard assets.
And alongside that inflation, the workforce is actively fracturing. We're talking UPS cutting 48,000 jobs, Amazon cutting 30,000, Intel 24,000. In total, over 950,000 workers were laid off recently. And here is the truly concerning part about those numbers. These aren't your typical temporary recession layoffs. These are highly profitable companies permanently replacing human roles with AI and automation. Those jobs, they aren't coming back.
Which brings us to a crucial point: how this macro crisis actually starts breaking our daily systems. We are seeing visceral, first-hand reports from people going to their local banks to withdraw their own cash, only to be fully interrogated by the tellers. Why is that happening? Because liquidity is incredibly tight right now. Banks have had to rely on a massive $16 billion emergency liquidity lifeline from the Fed just to meet basic obligations. It's essentially a band-aid on a system under immense stress.
Adding to all this pressure is the absolute breakdown of the healthcare system. We're looking at forecasts and reports of healthcare premiums jumping by a staggering 160%. Families are facing out-of-pocket maximums hitting $20,000. I mean, think about that. It's becoming a system that is no longer just expensive, it's becoming entirely unaffordable. It's literally forcing people to choose between basic daily necessities and life-saving medications.
Analysts are calling this the silent crisis. It's degrading our purchasing power quietly through just endless fees, subscriptions, and missing liquidity. Now, it's important to report impartially here. Some analysts expressing concerns suggest this might even be an intentional breakdown, potentially designed to usher in centralized digital currency controls. But hey, whether you view this as natural market cycles or something a bit more coordinated, the undeniable reality is that the old system is cracking. You need to prepare.
So what do we actually do about it? Let's pivot to the solutions. Strategy 1, building a survival budget.
Your absolute first line of defense is controlling what leaves your bank account. In a volatile economy, guessing where your money goes is way too expensive a habit. See, a normal budget represents what you'd like to spend, but a survival budget, that's what you must spend to stay afloat if your income drops or prices suddenly skyrocket. It strips away all that lifestyle creep and only includes absolute necessities: housing, basic food, essential utilities, and minimum debt payments. Knowing this bare-bones number gives you immense power. It tells you exactly how much income you need to protect when the pressure hits.
And to build that survival budget, we really have to attack those heavy structural costs. Take transportation, for example. It averages over $13,000 a year for the typical household. That's loans, insurance, repairs, fuel, the whole shebang. So many people are driving around car poor because they only ever looked at the monthly payment, not the total cost of ownership. It's time to fiercely rethink this expense. Make your current car last or downsize before conditions make that choice for you. You also have to become incredibly allergic to high-interest debt. Total U.S. household debt is sitting near $18.8 trillion right now, and credit card debt alone makes up a massive $1.25 trillion trap. Look, in a tight economy, carrying a credit card balance literally removes your future freedom. It grows while you sleep. You've got to stop treating that minimum payment as a plan and start fiercely attacking your highest interest balances.
Next up, you need to hunt down what we call silent spending. Streaming, app subscriptions, food delivery memberships, auto-renewing free trials, these act like an invisible tax. Companies are banking on you forgetting about them. But if left unchecked, just a handful of these small charges can equal a full utility bill or a whole week's worth of groceries. Go through your statements line by line and just cancel anything that isn't essential to your survival.
All right, let's move on to strategy 2, defending assets and stockpiling.
This is where we bridge the gap between that abstract macroeconomic data and what is physically sitting in your kitchen pantry. You cannot print scarcity, right? So prepare for it, physically. Juxtapose that $34 trillion national debt with this micro solution, $100. That is all it takes to start an emergency buffer. Don't wait until you can save some massive amount, because life is not going to wait to hand you an emergency. Start with $100. Build it to $500, then to a full month of expenses. Keep it physically separated from your spending money. This cash is a crucial wall between your household and absolute panic.
Now, beyond cash, you need physical supplies. We're talking long shelf life staples, water purification, hygiene supplies, medications, alternative energy like solar. With grocery inflation rising steadily, it was recently tracked at 3.2%, buying bulk food now isn't just prepping, it's a literal direct financial strategy. Think about it. The cheapest meal in a struggling economy is the one you already bought months ago when prices were way lower. You also want to look into hard assets. These are tangible resources, productive land, precious metals, practical goods. When fiat currency loses its purchasing power, hard assets retain their worth. Just like those central banks hoarding gold. Moving a portion of your wealth into tangible items and keeping some physical cash on hand, well, that protects you from unpredictable stock markets and an increasingly fragile banking system.
Which brings us to strategy 3, income resilience and community.
The harsh reality is, there's a floor to how much you can cut from your budget. You simply cannot coupon your way out of every economic disaster. At a certain point, income protection and diversification become absolutely mandatory. Plumbing, electrical repair, vehicle maintenance, childcare, you need to learn practical, physical skills that AI cannot automate. This builds your side income and creates incredible value. In a deep recession, people will always need things fixed. Having these skills allows you to participate in strong, mutually beneficial local bartering networks. It makes you so much less dependent on cash and fragile corporate supply chains.
And this brings us to a really profound mindset shift. We have to stop measuring survival by appearances and start measuring it by resilience. True financial resilience might look really boring from the outside. It looks like driving an older car, living in a smaller apartment, and skipping that expensive vacation. But while your neighbors who look wealthy might literally be one missed paycheck from total collapse, your boring resilience guarantees you stability and real peace of mind.
So this leaves us with one final critical question. Will you be standing when conditions get worse? The math doesn't lie, and the cycle of inflation certainly doesn't forgive. We've seen the data, we know the stages, and the absolute smartest move you can make is to act right now in this realization phase before the panic fully arrives. Take the steps from this explainer, secure your foundation, and make sure you aren't just surviving, but standing strong.